I guess we'll call this meeting to order, and I guess the first thing that we'll do is approve the minutes. And I think Zach just handed those out, and I think everybody just read them, right?
Yep.
So, everybody good with what happened there?
Yeah, I'll make
copy
a...
of the minutes after.
Here's some.
Sorry?
Oh, thank you.
Minutes. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 17th.
Second.
Say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
They all think it's the town hall.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Really?
Like that.
Who would come?
Chopper. The Pickards.
Who's posted for
Yeah,
you?
they don't have, well, Stephen has some.
And then the next thing is the Shellfish Department update. Well, we can wait for a minute.
Oops.
Yeah, we can always move boat regulations to the end in case anybody shows up a little bit later and deal with some of this other stuff first.
So this is just kind of, I was going to do some, everybody has my monthly report. They are now online, which I think most people realize, and we put them back up through the beginning of the year.
Good.
So I'm just going to hit on what I think are the top things in the monthly report.
And they're on the Shellfish Department page?
Yes, and it's on the left-hand side, it actually says monthly reports.
Perfect.
And so even though I think last month was the first month we did it,
Mhm.
I had them put up from January on.
Beautiful.
So we're very busy, as you can imagine, this time of year with our propagation activities. It's taking up a lot of time. We're moving oysters around. We are sweeping nets, and one of the wonderful things is that as grant holders take their stack collecting devices out of Chipman's Cove, they have been giving donations of seed to the Shellfish Department. So it's a program that Johnny started last year, and he's offered, the barge if necessary to help people, anything that we can do, because those donations, number one, help us save money, but number two, they allow us to propagate Wellfleet oysters in Wellfleet Harbor. And I add number three, it allows us to greatly increase the amount of seed oyster that we would plant, because we wouldn't be able to buy this much, especially the size that we're getting. So we will overwinter it and then put it back out in the spring. And we have a new AmeriCorps member, and he's been helping us already. He's going to be with us on Tuesdays. And we did a big AmeriCorps project day on the last day of the month last year. And we helped a grant holder get Chinese hats out of the cove, and then they also helped dig some old quahog beds in our grant, so we're kind of getting ready to have new fallow area to plant. So they dug up those quahogs, and then we planted those in the harbor. The quahog relay got flying colors, passed, and was clean, healthy, and we ended up opening up the Burton Baker rec area for the last 2 weeks, so the last 4 Sundays and Wednesdays in September, and people loved it and just came out with buckets full of quahogs. So that was great. And Johnny's idea is we've closed it now, so it'll remain a closed area all winter. The rest of the harbor is open, and then on June 1st, it'll be a great quahog area for all of our summer and seasonal permit holders. So we want to make sure to take care of them. We are going to have a sonar survey done in a partnership with the Center for Coastal Studies, and this will help us identify lost aquaculture here in the harbor and then get it out of there. They have a grant, and we are fortunate to be able to participate in them at no expense to the town. Shellfish, the select board approved new overwintering language, and there's a new overwintering contract, which actually means that most every grant holder will probably be filling out an overwintering agreement if you leave product out for sale or if you have clams in the ground. So that's just a change, and I already did send it out via our crier, and we'll continue to remind people that we'll be collecting a lot more of those this year. I went to a dredging task force meeting with the new Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, and it looks like everything is on schedule for the federal channel to be dredged starting October of next year. But we're already needing to start to work with the state to get matching funds for the rest of the harbor to be dredged. So the town is already beginning work on that, even though it's a couple of years away. So that's encouraging, and we're building good relationships with the state. They're eager to help us. And we are participating in studies. We've got our second year of our study going to measure if there's any late fall spat recruitment in Chipman's Cove. So every week we go out and put in sea clam shells and a new batch of sea clam shells, and then we test it. We test sea clam shells that have been out since September 5th. Every week we put them out for, it'll be like 7 weeks, I think.
Seems like a good fall for it.
It does. We haven't identified any yet,
Okay.
which is a little disappointing. But I think the important thing about Chipman's Cove is just the way that it has evolved to be such a benefit to the town as well with these donations. They're so important, and so I don't think that that's something to take lightly either as we look at when to take them out, those collecting devices out of the cove.
When they dredge next year, will that affect the opening of the cove?
Good question. I will ask Johnny and Chris. I know Chris has been here. I think Chris has been here with the dredging project. But I'll look into that, and it's something that we should certainly talk about, I think, here. My idea for tonight with the boat regulations was to conduct a listening session. So the whole reason that the Shellfish Department wanted to delve into the boat regulations is because of the amount of visits that we've had to the office and the phone calls that we've had expressing concern. We too had some concerns with interpretation of the regulations, and with the help of town council and just more studying, I feel a bit more comfortable with the regulations and how to interpret them. However, I don't want to discount that our phone has run off the hook and we've had a lot of visits. So I do want to get into a public listening session for the things that people are concerned about. I think that we should talk about certain things. I don't know the last time that they were updated, and I'm willing to work with people if we think that's a priority. But to start, I just want to hear in a public forum people's concerns. So that was my intention for tonight. And then the other thing on the agenda, which has a little bit of an update from the department, is the potential new employee and the initiation of a grant service fee. As I talked to the town administrator, I learned more about that process, and as I think about my budget overall, I felt like I was putting the cart before the horse. So I prefer to step back, work on my budget. It's due November 1, and then come back to Shellfish Advisory, not only with for approval of the budget, but we can talk as well about a new hire. It might need to be its own article on the warrant, and so at that point we can talk about it even separately. But I felt like I just need to do a little bit more research and planning and think about my budget big picture before I bring it to you. So I was just gonna give you that update. If there's questions that you have, of course it's on the agenda. I'd be happy to tell you some of my thoughts, but I'd rather work on my budget and present something final to you, what I present to the town administrator, with the big picture for the department overall.
Okay. I think it's fine, yeah.
Cool.
Just going back to the Center Coastal Studies mapping, didn't they do some mapping for us like 3 years ago? I remember I reached out to you about that. I don't think we ever saw any results
I don't think they've
or?
finished that yet.
Oh, okay.
When we were working with the consultants who did the analysis of an upweller,
Yeah,
we needed that data, especially to understand the benthic mapping around the pier. And Mark Borelli was able to get us that specific data, but he's still compiling his final report.
okay,
So that's why we
okay,
haven't
yeah,
seen
I
it.
was just curious, yeah.
And, he was like, you can use this for this specific purpose, but he didn't really I don't even understand it anyway, but.
Yeah, okay.
We just said we weren't gonna use it for anything else, because it was very tailored to, these are the points that we need in order to understand how much water there is if we put an upweller on the pier.
Great.
So the side scan sonar is going around the harbor, not doing benthic mapping, but looking for pings that will identify areas where there might be lost aquaculture gear. We've gone with a map and identified areas, taking feedback from the draggers who encounter them a lot. So we have identified, I want to say it's 5 or 6 different areas, including the channel, right around the breakwater. And into Chipman's as an area to look for gear. And then once we identify where it is, we have to start to think about the recouping. What is it called? The salvage operation.
Gotcha.
So, but they have a grant, so that will help.
Oh, great. Okay.
That's everything from the department, unless anybody has any questions I can answer.
Nope. All right,
Thank you.
thanks. So, everybody good with that?
Yep.
Do you guys want to have that boat regulation discussion? There's nobody here really, you know what
Yeah,
I
I
mean?
think we
So,
can table it or come back to it. I mean, maybe a whole group will show up, but at least for now, we can just jump it and then we can decide at the end.
If we want to have that,
Yeah,
at least
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
that sounds great.
All right. So the next thing on the agenda was discuss/approve Herring River Restoration Project follow-up and the support letter that John Dwayne wrote.
So, this is a letter our board wrote back in 2017. You may have gotten a copy of it, I believe I sent it out to you. Martha suggested I do it, the reason being, we're getting closer to, not to the finish line, but to sending a final packet to get the approval for the restoration project. Maybe Martha, do you want to speak to that a little bit, or John?
Sure, would you like me to speak to it?
Yeah, just you
right
can tell
now?
me the reason for the letter, yeah.
Yep, hi, I'm Martha Craig, I'm the Executive Director with Friends of Herring River. And the reason for the request is that we are getting ready to prepare our first permit application to the Cape Cod Commission, which is it's called a Development of Regional Impact Project. And we, 2 years ago, were issued a series of letters of support from various boards such as yours. And so this is just an update of those letters of support so that we can include those with our permit application.
Okay, so the letter is pretty self-explanatory. I included, the one I sent in 2017 was fairly brief. This one I included a paragraph in there about apparently the phragmites that are up above the dike up in Herring River. It's like 40 acres of them somewhere up there, which I don't see often, but apparently they're there. And if we have more flushing of the salt water up there, they're going to die, which is a good thing because phragmites apparently emit tons of methane. And it's a good thing for the environment, so it's kind of like one of these, extra benefits to opening it up there, as well as the fact that the water quality right around the dike for years has been terrible. Obviously there's closed shellfish beds up there, nobody's allowed to go, you can relay them, but that's really a bad area with water quality there. And so this is a project that we've been behind, it's been discussed at length. I know that people usually, I'm surprised that there's not people here tonight that want to discuss it Normally, every time we bring it up for discussion, people are worried about it from a shell fishing perspective, what's gonna do to my grant, what's it gonna do to the water quality in the bay, in the harbor. And so anyways, that's the point of the letter. And I can tell you that there was another, this was Association to Preserve Cape Cod. John, is that what you sent me earlier today? Was that you? John Rio?
I sent it, but I got it to Kurt Felix.
Okay, I
He's the
got,
chairman of the Comprehensive Wastewater Planning Committee.
okay, I got a copy of that somehow. I was copied on it.
That was from you.
It was Association to Preserve Cape Cod that was them that put this together, right? It was a study of water quality study of Cape Cod Bay, which Wellfleet is obviously, so there was like little spots all along the bay. It's been done before, but it's like a 5-year retrospective of how our water quality's doing here. And of course, Duck Creek was, they just basically, I didn't really understand everything that was in there. I took it at a casual glance, but water quality was degraded, needs upgrading, over by the dike, and 1 or 2 other places that showed poor water quality. No surprise. So anyways, opening up the Herring River, and with that, eventually when it comes through, I believe it's a good thing. So that's the point of the letter, and if you have any questions about the letter, feel free to answer.
The letter looks good.
Okay. Actually, I had one question about the letter too. Did we a couple of weeks ago vote, she's not here, but did we vote back a co-chair of this board when we got Dave as the chair? Did we do that or
I
no?
think it was you two.
No, but it wasn't co. I was like the
Yeah.
assistant, like down the line.
Well, I mean, I just, when I write letters, I always indicate who's the chair. I thought we did a co-chair or something like that.
I think it was Jake. Jake totally was like, yeah, I'm gonna be the
All
coach.
right.
There was no co. Got
Ah,
it.
It was all coach.
All right.
All right, well, we'll have to look back at the
Don't worry, I
minutes.
will just leave Dave as the chair of the board and not call
John,
it a
I-
day at
I have a
that.
question.
Becca said she'd be all up for it, but,
John, I have a question about the letter.
yeah, sure.
Where you are citing the University of Chicago report,
Yes.
is that a typo where it says report citing an ongoing study of the Herring River?
That is true. That is
Oh.
actually, if you go and, so these are printed, but they're hyperlinked, so if you look at the electronic copy, click on it, it's a very short thing,
Uh-huh.
and it says, they just mentioned the Herring River in there, and the Herring River is a very good test, it's really, it's a good test ground for this, theory
I
about.
have the same
And
question.
then
though, because then you
afterwards it
say
said, right. Go ahead.
that report could have been written with the Herring River in mind, but it
Is it
was-
something odd about the way that it's worded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so read it to me and let's hear what it says.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Let me see.
So it says, as outlined in a University of Chicago Marine Biological Laboratory report citing an ongoing study of the Herring River.
Yep. Oh,
So it was just referenced, it wasn't a study of the Herring
it
River.
was right, it was just referenced in there. No, they were referenced the fact that there was an ongoing study in there, but I don't think the University of Chicago study wasn't done specifically
Right,
for
so
the Herring
that-
River.
It kind of implies that it was.
Yeah, it could be worded better.
Yeah.
How about if I just play with that a little bit and
Yeah.
I think what I can come up with.
That was all I had.
Okay.
So does that make, going further down a couple of lines, that report could have been written with the Herring River in mind? Is that just an observation?
That was just an observation. I could literally, I think is what it is I read the whole letter and I decided that could go in there. I could just probably just remove it.
Yeah, I think the observation's a fine one.
What?
That sentence could be left there.
Just leave it in there about the
Yeah,
Herring.
I mean, if it wasn't specifically the Herring River up above, just, delete that part.
How about, okay, let me see the way I wrote it. I could just,
Leave the Herring River estuary.
Maybe you could say something like, while the
Which
report
reference?
cited an ongoing study of the Herring River, the report itself could have been written with the Herring River in mind.
okay.
Something like that.
It just makes it clear a little more, I think.
Okay,
So the report cites the Herring River, but it really wasn't written about the Herring
No,
River. It was
no,
written
no.
about, so that's just where, it could have been written with the Herring River in mind.
so why don't I leave that in there instead of citing the Herring River?
Yeah, maybe that just, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll play with it a little bit. I don't know, for some reason my brain's, I think I spent too much time on this letter already, with that particular area. Let me just think about how I could make it, unless you have a specific suggestion, I'll be happy to take it. And just change, we can cross stuff out and change one sentence to another. Kind of why we're here, we could do that.
Okay, through you, Martha, shouldn't this also be copied to the Cape Cod Commission? This letter?
It could be, but we'll include it in the packet for them.
For the hearing?
And just, yeah, so I was asked to send this letter to Martha and to Carol Ridley, is that right?
Yeah, you could just copy
And you're
us.
going to distribute it, is that right? Or is the board
Correct.
okay with that, instead of sending it directly to all these individuals that I've CC'd?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, they're the ones that requested it. Is it kosher that I just send it to Martha and Carol and let them distribute it?
Yeah.
All right, it saves me typing on the internet.
Yeah.
We were trying to make it easy.
Yeah, that's good. All right, thanks.
Easy as good.
Take some work from them.
But send it to the select board also.
Tom?
Martha, a question for you. Should John highlights, within our lifetime here, should we put a specific date at the end? Are you shooting for a date, like 2025 or?
Well, we would like to see the new improved structure completed within the next few years. So ideally, the timeline would be, we're just starting with permitting. Again, we hope to file with Cape Cod Commission relatively soon, and we expect that permitting process to take some time, perhaps 2 years. In the meantime, we'll be raising the funds, Friends of Herring River will be working with the project partners to raise the funds for the overall project, but with the hope that the project would start construction sometime around 2022 or so.
John, you want to include that, just to kind of give these guys some help?
Include
That
A
it
date.
the definitive date
Yeah,
of when?
these individuals up top that are copied, they get hundreds of letters a day, they're going to go back.
So
after
what would you
stamp.
suggest they do?
Just put a date, 2022 or 2023 or?
Yeah, I'd say we're even, within the next few years. But,
Okay.
You don't want to give any,
Put dates on things because then when the date shifts sometimes.
yeah, saying within your lifetime gives people,
Yeah, no.
we can push this off.
Could be
for-
Oh,
Jacob's lifetime or?
yeah, well, the way that it's been going, I just said our lifetime would be optimistic. So we're talking about 2022,
I would say within the next several years.
within the next several years.
Yes.
You're comfortable with
Because
that?
maybe,
Good.
Several?
All goes well,
All right.
maybe 2021.
That's
Or,
vague enough, though. Several's good. Several's less than 10, so. You think that's realistic?
For the structure to be constructed, absolutely.
Less than,
So,
okay.
but just bear in mind, once the structure is constructed, then it'll have a series of tie gates on it that will be opened incrementally
Yeah,
over time, so that's the slower part. So the dike will be constructed, the new bridge will be constructed.
within 10 years, you think?
Within the next 5 years.
Okay,
Okay, so, and then once all that is in place, then the gates, in consultation with the executive council and the restoration technical team, the gates could then be opened up gradually over time. So
Okay.
that'll take a longer time, as yet to be determined. But the structure itself should be built in a relatively short time.
hopefully within the next 5 years is how
That's our goal. Mhm.
So is that, board comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Hopefully within the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
When they open the gates, or when the construction happens, and how do they keep the flow from not just like, are they gonna like keep it blocked off for a little while, like while they build?
Yeah, so the gates will be, in the beginning, the flow will be open to the same amount that it is today.
Yeah.
So there's really no change. And then, so there's a series of different tie gates, and they will be opened, like I said, incrementally. I don't want to say slowly, but incrementally in stages. And so the gates are on a screw. So they would be basically screwed up higher and higher, different levels depending on the, which gate and the openings. And that would be determined through modeling to see how much the gate should be opened in the adaptive management plan. And then the technical team, through the adaptive management plan, would make a recommendation to really the governing board of the project, which is the Herring River Executive Council, which is made up of members, 3 members from the town of Wellfleet and 2 members from the seashore. So there's that local control here in town that would say, okay, open it up a little bit, and we'll keep monitoring and see what happens. So does that answer your question?
I think I was wondering like how they do it while they're like actually building it. You know what I
He
mean?
means like during construction.
Yeah, I'm just interested. Yeah. Like,
So, as I understand, the new bridge will be constructed sort of half at one time and then half another time. So there'll always be an opening of flow while one side's being constructed, and then they'll switch to the other side and keep that flow opening, which they'll need to do because of the fisheries and the flow. So there'll always be that flow that's there now.
It's not going to be next to the other one, it's going to be straight in line with the one that's right there, and that's just going to get replaced. Is that the idea?
That's the idea.
They're not going to build a whole new bridge and then just pull the other one out, right?
No, they'll deconstruct it.
Right.
And then construct part of it.
Right.
And then there'll be a temporary bridge constructed upstream
So you
to
can take
allow
traffic.
traffic flow
Yeah.
to continue.
wow, that's crazy.
Cool.
All right, so I've been asked to add select board to this, which I thought I did, but I didn't. Everybody okay with that? Martha, you okay with that? Copy of the select board on this?
You kind of have to.
It's on there.
Yeah.
It's addressed to the
It
select
says,
board.
Oh,
Wellfleet Select Board.
That's something I thought I did. It is- Oh, that's right, it's right up at the top.
My only thing would be, you know what you could do, just to make it simple?
Yeah.
Just say University of Chicago Marine Biological Laboratory report, period. Just take out the citing and ongoing study of the Herring River. 'Cause
Okay.
That's what makes it confusing.
I like that, I like
If people
that.
read it, they'll see that, oh, they're referencing the Herring
Yeah,
River.
it's very
But really,
short,
the point
you're
you're
right.
making is about the benefit of restoring tides.
All right, just
And
that,
so I think that's the simplest thing, and then you don't have to,
so the flow still goes good with just a period
Yes.
right after that.
Yeah.
Sounds fine to me.
yeah.
I will circulate amongst the board and Nancy, the revised copy finished, and I'll send it out tomorrow. Is that good?
Great.
Do we need to vote on recommending the submission of this letter to the select board? Is that
To-
Approve, it says approve, so
I
maybe.
think so.
Maybe it's one that's
Yeah,
complete.
sure.
Someone want to make the motion to do that?
Sure.
I noted in the minutes the changes that will be made, and then in the, actually, why don't I make the motion, so I've got it written. I'll make a motion to recommend submitting the updated letter of support for the Herring River Restoration Project to the Wellfleet Select Board, the Cape Cod National Seashore, and our congressmen, senators, and representatives.
Through Martha and Carol Ridley.
Through the
Okay.
Friends of the Herring River.
Yeah.
Except for the select board.
So I think Helen, the thought was that they would send their letter to us, and you can do it electronically or hard copy, and then we're going to gather all of the letters of support and then send them to the select board at once, so they're not trickling in.
Yeah, like once we approve it, it's pretty much going to be public, so you can just put whatever.
Yeah, well, that will solve it, but you make sure there's a policy that, like, a group like you, if you write to state agencies, right, the select board has to know about it right away. So, in other words, that's been a mess in this
Well,
past.
So
I
you
mean-
just do BOS Act when you
Yeah.
send it.
I mean, I can send it, it's easy for me to send it to the select board, it's very easy to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, I don't want them to get 2 letters, because then the select board gets mad that they're getting inundated with
No, not
duplicate
two
of that.
letters, just dot the I, that's all. In other words, there's been, just get it to us at the same time you get it to the others.
All right,
Well, I'll second Zach's motion.
All in favor?
Okay.
Cool, so I guess we're all set with that part. I guess we'll move on to the update on the Natural Resources Advisory Board and the Harbor Management Plan.
Dave, remember a while back, we were asked to participate, send a representative to the National Resource Advisory Board.
Yeah.
And I volunteered. I met with John's in the audience. And by the way, John Dwayne is also on the committee. And we sat, I think we were there for half an hour. Their responsibility is they're part of the creation of the harbor management plan. And part of that plan also includes the Shellfish management plan, which we have not, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've updated since 2007. The last one I had was 2007 with.
I think that's right. We started to, and it just.
Yeah, I think we started a couple times last year, and it was just part of an agenda that got pushed to the back.
We did
So
a couple of working meetings and then like morning meetings, I remember, but we didn't really make a lot of progress.
now, their goal, they identify all the natural resources in the harbor, wildlife habitats, open space, endangered species, climate change, which I think would affect us big time, and the quality of the wild, the water temperature, pH, nitrogen, etc. So I think, John, if you want to add, the request is to have, I believe, somebody on this board to participate and kind of get this thing done. It's been since 2007. Nancy, I know you'd be part of this.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to be a representative, and we'll get John and his team to get this thing updated.
My concern is that shellfishing obviously is an important part of what happens in the harbor. And when I have a chapter or a reference to shellfishing, which we would write, but we don't want to do that without input from you, because we're not shellfishing, natural resource enthusiasts. So, however you would like to work this, we need your input. We need your suggestions. What are things about the harbor that concern you that we need to address? Looking out 10 years, this is not a tomorrow morning plan, it's a 10-year plan. Another issue which came up because I had an email from Nancy is about access to the harbor, which is important for all the shellfishermen. And so, actually, Nancy, it triggered some thinking in my mind. I was at the Open Space Committee yesterday and talked with them about the same thing. So the question is, are you satisfied with your ability to access the harbor? I know that a number of ways that you use to get into the harbor are through private property, and therefore at the goodwill of the private property owners. The one that I talked with Barbara several times about is Omaha Beach Road, which is a private road, and it's available now, but if for some reason down the road somebody should get annoyed with you guys and try to shut it off, it'll be a real problem. So there's issues of natural resources, there's issues of access, are there any other issues that you think we ought to address? It would be great to have a shellfish plan and a harbor plan together, but if we just end up with a good shellfish chapter, well, that will be useful.
What if we,
Through you, what's your name?
John Reel.
And you're with NRAB?
He's the chair of
I'm the chairman.
How's your last name spelled?
R-I-E-H-L.
Thank you.
what if this committee like set up like some kind of like a working group with your committee, and we could all sit down, because like I feel like at one table together and work on it, you know, which would, you know, I mean, it would be like, you know, I think that would be a good thing, because all of us are obviously pretty invested in it, and I don't know really what you're at. Like, I mean, I understand what you're getting at, but I think you could coach me more on what you're asking, and if we're working together,
That would be great.
I
yeah.
think that's a good idea.
So if we could plan some dates between the two committees to get together and just sit down and work
Definitely,
it out.
yeah.
Probably what it is, a group out of your committee and a group out of our committee would be the whole two committees.
Yeah.
I would think it was
Respectfully,
Our
Helen.
biggest,
Helen.
I just,
Yeah.
the
What?
last time we did it, John, what happened was that group went ahead and wrote something. It was we back then for me.
This is the Shellfish.
Looked at it and it was like, what is this? May I offer a kind of efficient way to do it is to look at what they've got in the NRAB, the harbor management plan now. Look at the section about shellfishing, okay? And some group here looks at it, makes notes as to what you want to add, okay? What's different, and then you meet. Don't do it, the first meeting, if you don't do that, is going to go on way longer than it needs to, and they need it quicker. Because what happened last time was very inefficient and it stalled it. So look at my recommendation, look at the original text as it is now, right?
Yeah,
In your management plan.
you can find it on the NRAB webpage.
Yeah.
I actually
It's the
could,
2006 report.
I
You
can
guys
forward
keep
it
on
to
it.
you all.
So you
I-
haven't updated since 2006 and now you're doing it?
The only reason why I was saying that I would think the two groups could, because this is gonna,
Yeah.
I think it would be good just to have us all there present together, because in 2007, like, I don't even know what I was doing in 2007.
Joint meeting, we'll set that up.
Yeah, because like I think I'm sure all of us here.
I wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was clarifying it.
Okay.
Get the text, you guys look at it, do a bunch of bullet points that need to be updated, like just rough, just you, and then meet with them. Boom, boom, boom. Because when you have your type of specialized skill discussion with them before you've even looked at what they don't have now, it will go much more slowly. And I'm not even saying in my opinion, I'm just like, I've been doing this for a long time. And you need to look at what they have now, which this committee worked on in a kind of disheveled way last time.
Yeah, our biggest hang-up was just somebody writing the content. Like, we identified places that we needed to update. It was just the content. But, I think we can all start by looking at the goals of the 2007,
Shellfish management plan.
yeah. They're pretty good. I mean,
I also remember, I think it was at the constable school this winter, they had given, the DMF has like an outline, which, maybe it's just easier to update what we have, but there was this other outline that we could follow if we wanted to start from scratch with the Shellfish Advisory. I get what Helen's saying about the natural resources, John. You can email it around to everybody and we can look at it and maybe do a first run through as a group for them before we meet with them. And then, but the Shellfish Management Plan separately, that would be another kind of.
Yeah, that's one of the, well, I brought it up at the last meeting about the Shellfish management plan, which we kind of let go over our head for a while here, and we haven't been exactly putting it off, but it is time to update it. And I hadn't thought about how we could combine the two together, but John, we have this on the agenda for the end of the month, is that correct? The harbor management plan?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a meeting that we're having sometime in the end of this month, a couple of weeks, somewhere between the 21st and the 24th, I heard.
The 25th, I can't remember numbers.
Okay,
Swim around in my head.
but you're welcome to attend that one if anybody wants to come listen to it, but I'll be happy to be the go-between between the two boards. But we're going to be, we're going to be working on that plan, and it was a long dragged out process doing the shellfish management plan last time, so.
It was inefficient.
Yeah, so what you should do is familiarize yourself with the one we've got. And I'll also send around the harbor management plan, which if you don't have already, I believe I just got an electronic copy of that, and it's on the town website, so you can take.
Where's the last shellfish management plan? Is that on the
Should be on the shellfishing
shellfish board?
page.
It might be, they redid the website, so some things, I'll just check right now.
It's available.
Nancy, I have an electronic copy of it, and so does Barbara Benisol.
I do too, but I'm wondering if it's online.
So could you send the harbor management plan to the SAB email address and then we can look at it? Or go over?
Yes.
I've got
Do
it.
you have it on your computer, Joe?
I do, the one that you just sent me, right? The 2006 plan, yes.
I'm just worried that it's up,
I'll send it around.
the original copy is on an old computer of mine, so if John has it on your computer, that would be more efficient than mine trying to extract it off an old computer.
I believe you just sent it to me, so I've got a PDF, I saw that.
Okay, fine.
So that should work.
So then you can send it
I'll
to,
forward it to the whole board, yeah.
and then we can read it, and then I still think that we should all meet as a group because
That would be,
I'd like to get to just to know you anyway, and if we're gonna work together, we could,
that would be great.
yeah,
That
We
sounds
did do
good.
that 10 years ago, we probably should have done.
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, if nothing else, I think that would be a great way to just get out like our 5-year plan. I think we all could have some good ideas.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking about why we should meet together. And not only that, because like I don't know what's happening at all, and I'm sure other people here don't either. So
Great, let's do it.
There's also, Dave, I have notes on this plan. I know we took notes we had one meeting where we discussed this. I can add that to this so that you can think of some of the topics that we wanted to
yeah, that'd be
address.
awesome.
For example, Nancy, she's got now Johnny doing the propagation plan. I don't think that was in this in much detail as what Johnny's working on today. So I'll just add what I caught at that meeting and just,
And
that could
then
be a start.
yeah, so we could I could read what John sends and then attach that to
Yeah, absolutely. Then we're
apply
kind
it to.
of knowledgeable when we go into that session.
Okay. Cool.
I have one specific technical question, which the answer which may save me from going down a dead-end path. I've noticed personally, and I saw it in one of Belding's reports, that there are very low population of shellfish in the estuary that goes up to Fresh Brook, between Lieutenant Island and where the Audubon is. And one of the things I was interested in is that we met earlier in the year with Bob Prescott when he was still head of Mass Audubon, and he suggested putting an oyster reef in there to try to regenerate the population. And that began to intrigue me because the marshes on Lieutenant Island are the most open to damage when due to climate change because they also face the southwest wind. My question is, can any of you think of a reason why there are no shellfish in the estuary of Fresh Brook? Is there some fundamental reason? Because evidently they haven't been there for a long time.
Where specific are you?
He's talking,
You know where,
South of Lieutenant Island, between Lieutenant Island and the Audubon.
you know where the Audubon Sanctuary ends? You go all the way down there?
that creek that used to
creek
go
that
up,
goes in there, yes.
goes all the way up to my old house there.
If you're driving out onto
Okay,
Lieutenant
no,
Island, driving out to Lieutenant Island, it's off to the left.
I mean, I recall days when the shellfish was prolific in that area, not that long ago either, like,
Okay.
I'd say within 10 years.
I think you had an enforcement issue up there, didn't you?
I
Like
think
a
it's more
while.
the enforcement issue with the Fibrio that's.
Like people,
people
because we're not allowed to pick we're not allowed to pick past a certain point, and
Hello?
people were in there, right?
Over?
Right, no, so on when you're driving down Lieutenant Island Road, that's Fresh Brook on your left?
On the
that you
left,
see?
yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody shellfishing in there, but
So,
not because.
Over?
about the reefs that Audubon put out, when this committee was looking at it, and he said, oh, no, that was tried a long time ago, and it just got silted over with sand. And it happened, it was permitted.
He's talking about a different
Sure enough,
area.
It got, what?
He's talking about a different area.
No, I know, but what happened to that reef was it got silted over, sure enough, and it doesn't exist anymore.
I'd have to say it was a poorly placed reef.
Yes,
I
but the
recall.
other parts of that also apparently, if I remember what was said at those meetings, John, had that same problem.
I think up in there too, there is big, if you walk all the way up in there, there's like these huge sand humps that come down off of the peat, you know? And that, it's like so shifty that I don't think it could like hold any sort of like matter, you know,
It
to
just
like,
drops
like
into the
aggregate,
water.
you know? Yeah, it just all drops down.
But in the past 10 years, Chip's right, it has been productive. I don't know how far, I guess it would be east it has, but at times there were nice like single oysters out
I
there.
remember
that people are getting.
going way up there, but you also have to think too, so like it has been good around that area the past few years, and I think it's because of the ice jamming everything up there, you know? So it might be a cycle of ice
The ice
jamming everything
the
up
product
there,
up there.
then it spawning and doing its thing and then getting picked out, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, at least these are all problems we can think about. When they think about it, decide this is a really bad idea, but at least I was worried that there was something wrong with the water quality or something.
Wasn't there I remember at the State of the Harbor conference, like, what was it at the beginning, and then there was that trout guy that wanted to open up the,
See around.
and
Project is still being thought about, still moving forward.
so maybe there's just not enough, like, flow, you know?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
So, some issues to consider, but nothing necessarily fatal. Thank you.
That's a difficult area, it would be a difficult area to collect oysters, wouldn't it, for access? And the only way to get there is through the Audubon, isn't that right?
No, you can drive down that little Lieutenant Island Road, and then you could walk all the way up there, or take like a
Oh, you mean
kayak
just
at
go,
high
I know what
tide,
you're talking about,
or
yeah.
canoe at high
I
tide.
have seen people go
Great.
wild picking off the end of West Meadow Road, which runs all the way out to the end of Lieutenant Island.
Yeah,
In the
Oh, yeah.
fall, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very active.
that's how you would access that area.
Would it be like what we call the Audubon area, which is before the bridge, take a left?
Yeah,
That's what I
That
mean.
little sandy road right there,
That
that's
little
the only
there
way.
gives you access and up.
all back up in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just read the chapter on shellfish in the harbor management plan, and this is going to be a piece of cake for you.
Cool.
Yeah, the way it's set out. It's short and sweet.
Cool.
But Helen, through the chairman, my problem with the 2006 harbor management plan is that there are too many recommendations. I want it much more focused.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I wanted to just meet and we could just be like, hey,
Yeah, when you
what's
look-
going on? Like,
You look at that plan,
You used to,
there
I'm
was
sorry,
quite-
you used to need, in order to get money from the DMF, a shellfish management plan. That hasn't been true for years. However, the harbor management plan should be, in my opinion, pretty specific. Because if you put something in as a recommendation, and it becomes this authenticated document, it can be a way to get money, okay, for shellfishing. It's not the direct requirement that it used to be, but that was one of the things that came up before too. I'm sorry to be the history supplier here, but that was a reason to have a lot of detail, Dave. You know, and not to have it be shallow. And it's a piece of cake.
One of the things that I'm interested in when the two committees meet is, I think you left one in my office, or there was something that, there were an awful lot of recommendations, and then my question was, well, how many of these things actually got implemented? And how many still need to be implemented? So I imagine that's what you guys are going through and doing. I just find that, I think that's interesting to me.
Great.
Last thing, if I may, just some publicity, the State of Waltham Harbor Conference comes up on Saturday, November the 2nd, at the elementary school. We start with some drinks and coffee and pastries at 8:30, meeting at 9. With, I think, one very interesting report on the Saturday morning by Agnes Mittermeier from the Center for Coastal Studies, who's done some interesting work on it, understanding what black mayonnaise really is and where it comes from. And that's one of the major problems in the harbor right now, so I think we would all enjoy her presentation. It's Saturday, November 2nd.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks. 8:30?
Starts at 8:30, with the actual presentation starts at 9, but we sort of get together at 8:30.
Yeah, I saw the agenda today. I'm not sure who sent it out, but I saw the agenda today. It looks good.
Great.
When was it?
It's at elementary school.
All food?
Mm-hmm.
Free food?
Cool. All right, so I guess we're all set with that conversation. I guess we'll move on to, I guess we're not talking about the Shellfish Department employee.
Oh, I was just going to make a little announcement about that the Herring River Stakeholders Group is going to convene a panel
Oh, yeah.
on shellfishing on November 6th from 4:30 to 6:30 in the afternoon at the Council on Aging. So I have been asked to, so it's kind of like an educational, it's to educate the stakeholders group members themselves about shellfishing and how the project could help the shellfishing industry. And what Martha was saying is kind of a shellfishing 101, to educate them about it, and then why we think it's a good idea and what we expect the benefits are. For example, we're doing water quality work with the state right now to see if we can either keep the Herring River open longer or move the line back. And then certainly once it starts to get incrementally opened, one would expect that slowly, we'd actually gain shellfishing ground back there. And I know, a long time ago, you used to be able to shellfish on the other side of the dike, and wouldn't that be great again? I walked back on the other side of the dike a couple of weeks ago, and it got a great set. I don't know how it made it through, but it did.
Wow.
And, you just think about that, and in a year like this year, which was such a great set everywhere, almost everywhere, with a better tidal flow, I would imagine that would be really, encouraging. Now, maybe the water quality isn't going to change that much overnight, obviously, but it's just something to think again. This is a 10 to 20 year down the road look. And so I think gaining shellfish grounds is always something worthwhile to look into.
Hi, thanks for explaining that, Nancy. And just that we're hoping to have that, or we will be having that on November 6th. And one of the things that we also wanted to do was sort of discuss with the stakeholders group the coordination and cooperation that Friends of Herring River and the Vista Project has had with your board and the Shellfish Department. And if it made sense, perhaps have one or two representatives from the Shellfish Advisory Board join in that discussion on the 6th. And, for something for you to consider as we continue to pull together that presentation and agenda for the meeting.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. I was typing. When and what is the event you're talking about? Not the stakeholders group meeting, but...
It is the stakeholders group meeting.
Okay.
On November 6th
Right.
from 4:30 to 6:30. So, just being here tonight, I wanted to put it to your board to see if you would be willing to have one or two representatives come and attend. And then, Zach, you're
So
on.
I'm already on the stakeholders.
Cool.
I'm
So if people ask questions about shellfishing, you could answer that.
Well,
Would be like,
more so than that, my role is to bring the shellfishing community's questions, concerns, comments, input to the stakeholders, to the project. So I was kind of hoping there'd be more people here. I've asked people individually out and about, and I haven't gotten a whole lot of input. But I would like to get some from you guys, and it can be general or specific about concerns about the project. It doesn't have to be concerns, it can be positive input. I know that sedimentation has been a big question. So at this meeting, from when I read the agenda that came out to us, it's dedicated to shellfishing most of the meeting, and then the second part of it, it's going to be about a further explanation of, or an exploration of the adaptive management model or process. And I personally have some questions about that. I feel like it hasn't been explained well to me. So maybe to get us started here tonight, Mike, the adaptive management thing has been thrown out a lot. As whenever the shellfishing community has brought up concerns about sedimentation or coliform or any other issues, the answer from the project has always been, well, we're going to stop if there's a problem. Yeah. But I did bring this up at one of our previous meetings. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, and I've been asking for this at the stakeholders group meeting and here, any initial data. I mean, say they're creating baselines, but what are the parameters? When is there a problem? How is it identified? And how do we agree on it? And who makes that decision?
I remember you made that comment.
So that's still out there, and I'm going to bring that up because that's my personal concern. But anything at all that you want to bring, but there's just a comment about the project.
So this is not only to educate you guys about shellfishing, but it's also so that we can also get our questions answered too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I do just a couple of comments on that for the adaptive management plan. And I know a lot has been said, well, we'll monitor and model and tell. So if I may, I have a handout about the different monitoring efforts that are either now in the works or foreseeable.
Well, I think we should keep this to, this agenda topic is about the stakeholders group meeting. I don't need an answer right now.
Okay, so I just have these not for discussion, but
Sure.
it's something that
Sure.
you can have on this, so I can just pass these around. And I know it's not on the agenda, and I don't want to
That's fine.
prolong the discussion.
Can I answer one question before she's doing that? Yeah, so the people that make the decisions about that, when it's about opening dates or closing it, right, is the technical group, scientists, are informed of it. And
Right.
they would, this is not written in the report, but they would most certainly talk to the Shellfish Department, and then the
Executive council, right?
makes the decision. Not the select board, but the executive council, after getting really good advice.
Right.
And doing it all in open meetings.
I think knowing that it's going to be kind of a two-way street too, we can try and encourage people from the shellfishing community. I don't think, we haven't really had a meeting, and maybe there's not a ton of new information, but this monitoring report is of interest, I'm sure, and to just keep that discussion going and keep the lines of communication going, because now that Zach says that out loud, I know I've heard that as well from a couple other people, so I think it'd be great to just talk more about adaptive management, how it's going to work. It's complicated stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the more that you hear it and understand it, or the greater your understanding is, the more that you take time to explain it and answer questions coming at things from a couple different angles. So I think that's something we can certainly promote too, to invite the shellfishing community.
Yep, and the meeting was scheduled to be at a fairly high tide.
Great.
With that in mind, so people could come if they wanted to. And I just didn't know if anyone from this board would be interested in, I guess, not only having their questions answered, but actually participate in the presentation. And the list for the monitoring effort is something that the project team would like to come back to this board at a later time to discuss a that monitoring effort. I know this isn't the meeting, but this is sort of in the works, and probably Tim Smith from the National Seashore, who's deeply involved with the monitoring, at some future meeting would like to come and address the board at what exactly is happening in the harbor now, what's happened in the past, what's happening now, and future efforts underway with a specific focus on shellfishing. And how would the project be able to determine if there's changes? And if you look there, I know that Center for Coastal Studies, mentioned earlier, is currently working on a new bathymetric survey for around some of the aquaculture areas and grants closer to the river in that area. So that's just one example.
Okay, so does anyone have any other comments, questions, concerns that they want me to bring to that stakeholders meeting?
I think I'll go to that too.
All right, so Dave wants to go to that.
Just so that and then I could make my comments.
Do you want to participate in it? Is that what you were asking for, Martha?
Yes.
Do you want to participate in it?
Yeah.
Do you get a stake in the game over there?
Well, I think we all do.
I think we all do. I mean, I shellfish Chipman's Cove, but you guys more than me.
We just live here, so I think everybody does.
Yeah.
So
So if you hear concerns or questions or comments from other people, I would like to hear, because I would like to have something to bring. And again, it can be general, it can be specific, it can be questioning, positive, negative, whatever it is. Another thing that I'll bring up that I might like to hear or bring to that group is any examples that from other restoration projects with impact to shellfishing. That's some kind of data that I would, or just experience that I would like to hear about up and down the coast if other projects have been done. And then there's the issue, and a separate issue is if there is an impact to shellfishing, what is the compensation plan, or is there a plan? We've gone around and around with this quite a bit.
This
but
summer I had.
I think it's still worth bringing up at the stakeholders meeting. So we're talking about determining if there is a problem and how we do that, and then if there is a problem, what happens besides just stopping? What if you can't farm that season or whatever,
Yeah.
a short period or a long period? I don't know that there's a good answer, but I think it should be brought up again.
I had this girl, her name was Adrienne Michaels, that went on the boat with me this summer, and she was going up and down the East Coast asking those questions, same question, and she has that information from restoration projects, and I can put you in touch with her.
That would be good. Yeah.
Of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, that would be
and
great.
how it affected people and everything. So,
Adrian,
Adrienne Michaels.
you want contact information?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely good questions, and if I think anything, I'll let you know. Nothing off the top of my head that I have.
Right.
I know over the time, we've definitely had a lot of meetings with the Friends of Herring River, and a lot of the questions that I've had in the beginning have been answered, but it's definitely worth to refresh everything and see if I come up with anything else.
Is it alright if we go back on the agenda for a second?
Yeah, can I just ask one more thing? You
Yeah.
mentioned the Center for Coastal Studies, they're doing new studies at the bottom there. Is that a part of the presentation on the 6th too, or is that something?
No, because that's underway, so I don't think we'll be presenting much on the monitoring. That's ongoing right now because we don't have the data to discuss, but I thought it might be helpful just for this board to see, what the plan is and what the different parameters are that will be monitored. I'm not sure if it
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Do you guys, this is for John too, do you guys want, you were gonna send out the harbor management plan to us, do you want to set a date to work with these guys now so that we can read it and just actually start doing this? So that we can, instead of just talking about it and then going to me reading it and everybody reading it and then not talking about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take what Helen said, the harbor management plan didn't have a huge section
It's not huge.
on shellfishing in it right now, so I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of input we can give.
Yeah.
It's really, I had forgotten how simply it was put out.
Yeah, you said you just read it, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I read it in the cast too, but the point is, I mean, I was there working with them on the committee. But when you guys read through it, there are a whole lot of things that are still an issue. You might word them a little better, maybe not, it's pretty well written. And they're just a bunch of bullets. Recommendation, 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 recommendation. And every time you hit one, ask, could this be a source of money? Okay? And Nancy probably would be up on that. That's why I said piece of cake.
Well,
Okay, well,
I think I would also, I mean, I don't mind thinking like that too. But maybe we could just read it and then set a date and then actually do it. you
well, how
know?
about this? Do you wanna know, like, our next meeting, we want to set it as the harbor management plan state as part of our agenda? And that way we can, I'll send it electronically out to you guys tonight. You can have it, you can read it at your leisure. And then our next meeting, it'll be like number one on the agenda or somewhere. You can make the whole meeting about it if you think it's appropriate, but I think it's,
I think looking at our own schedule, a convenient high tide about the 10th of November would be a good time.
The 10th of November. So,
I don't know where the high tide is on the 10th of November, or something like that.
okay, so what I was thinking was, I don't think we have to have a whole SAB meeting designated to this. Like, I feel like if we go over this ourselves and then meet with them, we can, you know what I mean, just so that we could just do some of our own work, and then we don't have to tie up
all right.
this with
You would have to post this as a
public meeting.
Because we'd all be together, we'd all be together.
Yeah, so why don't, so if we look at November 10th,
Which
For
is a
tide.
Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
is that not a good day that we can?
How about the week before? Does
Okay,
that work for you?
That should be okay.
do we before, yeah?
Because then the tide's the
I just
following week
wanted
at
to leave
late.
a little
High tide.
time after we meet on the 25th.
yeah,
So we could organize our thinking.
When's the high tide?
On the 4th, the high tide's 5:02,
What's the day in the 4th? It's,
Monday. The 5th, Tuesday, 6:02 PM. Wednesday, 7.
How about Tuesday at 6?
Tuesday,
And
the,
Tuesday's the 5th.
Tuesday's the 5th?
Tuesday's the 5th.
Tuesday the 5th at 6?
Okay.
Great.
Do you guys want to?
That's gonna be a joint meeting between the two boards?
Yep,
That's election day. Are we voting this year?
You can do it Wednesday.
That's the
Do we have local elections?
Herring River meeting.
Oh, yeah.
is Tuesday not good?
Tuesday's
No,
fine with
I
me.
mean, are we having any election this year?
I don't think so, but I don't think legally, unless it's a national election, that
Oh, is it a holiday? We can get into
you
the,
can just go run in and follow them.
is it a holiday?
I don't know.
No, it just says,
I don't know any election.
Well, town hall.
Now, is this going to be a joint meeting that we're just going to have the joint meeting, or is this going to be part of our agenda?
I think it's just gonna be a joint meeting.
And then just do this?
Yes, exactly.
Knock it out?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was
What
thinking.
time?
At 6 PM.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday the 5th.
And the town offices aren't closed that day, right?
they're not closed.
They're not closed. Everything's open, right?
Do you guys want to, set this up with the town and like get like a meeting room and all that? And then tell us where it is and we'll meet you, so then,
Should probably use this room.
Great.
Probably meet here. It's a lot better than, meeting here be fine if it's open.
Yeah, it's nice here.
sweet.
Okay.
Thanks,
Also-
thank you for doing that.
My first thing, John, is to see how many of our members are going to be able to make it.
Okay.
So I'll send out an email in the morning.
All right,
And how's
We'll
that?
work together. If it doesn't work on the 5th, we'll find someone to meet.
all right, cool,
About that sort of time frame, maybe good.
cool. All right.
And one of the things that's nice about this room, if we ever chose to use this room for like doing something like this, where there's gonna be a good group and like some discussion about specific things to do with mapping or anything like that, is you've got the projector here that people use to put stuff up on screen behind us You just hook it up to a computer, as far as I know.
Mia just said she don't.
And you just basically, we could just sit there, if you ever find the need for that, that's what's good about this room. It's all rigged up for that.
Ooh,
Cool.
So
that'll be
technology,
good for the next
technology,
Shellfish Advisory Board meeting on our own when we have. to
well,
talk
so
about
I'm thinking, if you think about stuff that you'd want to have projected while you're talking, makes the, instead of having to look at, like even just looking at letters and stuff like that, you could put it up there, people could read it, and it's just, technology moves ahead, so.
Cool. So now we did that, so cool.
So that is the date of the 5th, is that what we said, or is it?
So now we have a meeting to go to the 5th and the 6th of November. Nice.
Busy week.
All right, cool. So are we all set with that part of the agenda? Pretty good. The next thing was plastics in the harbor. And I know that, what's his name, Freddie Richards, really wanted to talk about that. And I think it was, people want,
Jim O'Connell has always wanted to
Yeah,
talk
Jim
about
always
it.
wants to.
I kind of have been interested in that too. Just the amount of plastics in the harbor and how it affects our shellfish and, the long-term effects of using this much plastic in aquaculture, and how we could reduce, we all know it's probably not good. So, we know it's not good. And how we could maybe reduce the use of plastic or think of new ways to attack that problem.
Yeah, one of the things that always comes up is banning single-use zip ties.
Yeah.
It's never gotten anywhere, but it's come up quite a bit. So.
So I've never used the bags with the rubber, instead with the rubber and the hook on them.
Yeah.
And when I first started with the boys in Cliffy was just dead set against they don't work. You can't reach under the rack for them, and I never really understood what the big deal was about using those. I mean, it's rubber, but still, it doesn't get loose as easy, and it's reusable.
I've participated in pretty much all the methods, and Brent Valley uses that
Yeah.
particular style. And before that, I used to use the stainless steel diaper pins.
Yeah.
They were reusable, and they were fairly inexpensive way back then. But I thought the rubber straps was totally stupid.
Yeah.
But then I spent a summer working with Brent on his grant, actually using them,
Yeah.
and it is far superior to any other method that I've used. The inner tubes don't cost nothing, you just cut them up. The only expense is the clips, and they're just they're faster than zip ties.
Yeah.
And they work well.
We found,
I don't see any reason at all why we need the zip ties when there's alternate methods that, I don't care, who tells me that they're recycling their zip ties,
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
I find,
because the amount I find working in the wild, they're just everywheres, and there's year to year, there's not less of them.
Yeah.
It's just more and more and more.
I catch oysters with set on,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But,
They're convenient, but they're not eco-friendly.
I use bungee with a plastic hook, a
Yeah.
hard plastic
Yeah.
hook, because I was using the rubber and because it was free for all that reasons, but it gets played out over time, and then those hooks can spread and they disintegrate.
Right.
And that bungee works pretty good, and then you don't need to use any zip ties, and that hard plastic thing, it doesn't deteriorate,
Right.
turn into a microplastic or anything, and you only have to buy it once. So you can get in at a crap tide deep without having to individually go to a corner.
Yeah.
It's literally just two hooks.
Yeah.
Every time. So it is faster, but I was also just concerned about the black bags. like what does that do to like water temperature having that many, how much black is in the water with plastic heating up the water? And just, I know my bags are disintegrating. I know they are. I can feel them. When I first buy them, they're super hard, and then, they kind of turn to nothing as the years go on. And they are breaking down in the water.
Yeah. I think it's a concern. I mean,
No.
They're not supposed to.
Well, I think that's from the sun, though. That's
yeah,
just-
I mean, they do break down. I mean, I think plastic does break down over time, but I'm sure with the amount of bags, I mean, Wellesley Harbor is still a big place. I'm sure it's not totally affecting it in a huge negative way. Also, there's probably a lot of other sources of plastic entering the water besides us. But I mean, just as an industry, we could always look
Forward.
and figuring out ways.
I wanted Mark Borelli, when he was coring, he was doing this study, most of which isn't completed yet. This is quite a few years ago, like 5, 6 years ago. I said, are you testing for microplastics? Because what you said is right, and there are other sources, but there's a lot of plastic, more plastic in the harbor because of all the envelopes, the bags.
Oh, definitely.
And guess what? We got science on it, and there are papers about how Vibrio loves microplastics, and it's all in the black mayonnaise. So that was really interesting. I mean, it isn't just that Vibrio likes things of that consistency. For some reason, Vibrio loves the plastic particles
Yeah, I've read that too.
more.
I think if we could, Damien and I were talking about this, just if we could, even like clam netting, like that's already like a fine piece of plastic and it shreds into 1,000 pieces, like vertical poly lines. If we could, like Damien and I were trying to think of ways to use like some like a different material, to get ahead of a problem that could potentially ruin the business, I mean, you don't want, like we all don't, I think of it this way, like we all don't buy farmed salmon, like we all are like, ew, that's disgusting, or farmed shrimp, we're like, no, we don't want that. And if, somebody's like, I don't want farmed oysters because of the plastic in them, like that's a thing, that's a thing, and that's like, that will ruin us.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look into as an industry. I think we need to find replacements so we don't, I mean, you can't really grow clams without clam nets here.
Yeah.
So you
need,
need, and if there was an alternative that was wasn't too, costly, I'm sure guys would be happy to go for it, or getting grants to do something. But there's just, at this point, sadly, there's just not a lot of alternatives to plastic. I mean, it's just the best material,
Yeah,
it's cheapest.
Or to do it yourself, figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
We are
Right.
the people to be thinking about this, though.
We use reusable zip ties. I know it's still plastic,
Really?
but at least they're reusable and they work really well. And I still have the same ones I bought like 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, they work well. You got to get used to it. Like it's a little tricky getting the tab on and off, but once you
And
kind
then they get mucked up, or they get a
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, if you're in like sort of a high mucky area, it might not work as well, but they do work. We use them a lot. So
What if you instead of thinking that you have to change everything,
Yeah.
what if you just picked one thing to try and focus on? And I was thinking about grants too, like if you could somehow research environmental sustainability grants for business transitions, like
Yeah.
CDP educates land-based businesses, restaurants and stuff on getting green certified. And so I wonder, just are there any grants out there that as a community we could write and then divvy up some money to help people make a transition from one thing? Maybe it's just the single-use plastic zip ties to start. I don't know. But just like bite one thing off instead of and clam nets and grow bags. I mean, it's just one thing at a time. even just the single-use zip ties would make an enormous difference in our harbor. If you look at the marine debris pile at the transfer station, I was over there yesterday, it's just like full
Well, so
of zip ties,
zip ties,
which is great, right?
that's a good candidate to shoot.
It's not in the water, but when you just start, when you see them in a pile like that,
It's crazy. That's kind of what, you know, if we were talking with the harbor management plan, like that is something to, like plastics in the harbor, you know, like that's like when you think 5-10 years out, like we may not be aware of a problem that we're doing, but somebody else somewhere might be. And then we're gonna get caught with a backlash of something, and just to stay proactive on something ahead of, you know, when your kids wanna go shellfish,
Sure.
you know.
Well, they're getting ready to ban straws everywhere in the world.
Well, that's what I'm
Seems to
saying, like
me
it's
that
like a thing, it's happening.
Plastic
I'd
zip
love to
ties
be a
would be-
leader.
it would be a good
Yeah,
place to
it's a
start.
good
If you're gonna
example
start
for
with
our
something,
industry.
that sounds like it's it, you know?
And it's pretty easily managed, I believe.
So there's an alternative to zip ties, which is the rubber ones, that you can make your own rubber, is that what you're
Or
talking?
like,
Maybe
Or
we should
bungee
collect
cords, I mean-
examples with
the
the
reusable
components and
ones.
everything and show people, here's a bunch of different things, because everybody has a right to do it also in the way that fits for their business and fits for their
Budget.
pocketbook, right? So, you know, the single-use zip, what are they called?
Reusable.
Reusable zip ties, or the bungees, or the Brent Valley Way. Just if we could collect a bunch of different, I know Andrew Morgan, I did the Toddler Barks grant inspection, and he also has like the things, they almost look like the condo closures.
Lobster hook.
You
The
know.
like he uses lobster closures instead of the plastic hooks.
Oh, yeah.
On his rack,
On his
Yeah,
bag.
to put the bags onto the racks.
but the enclosure,
So say this is the bag, he's
Yeah.
got like a bungee that is attached underneath, and then he hooks around back
just-
to the bag.
Oh, with the, yeah.
So then you don't need anything to close the top of the
Right.
bag, because the straps are closing the bag and holding it down at the same
Right,
time.
right.
So
Maybe
it's,
we could collect examples, show them to people. I mean,
Ideas,
obviously,
yeah.
this is gonna have to be a public discussion, I think.
That'd be a good way to
No, it's
lead
not.
the way with Wellfleet, though, is, you know, thinking about the ecology of the bay, you
I
know?
mean, look what Wellfleet Oyster Fest is doing, they're going plastic-free.
Really?
Can you imagine all of those beer cups? that
Plastic
they-
spoons and
There's
forks?
nothing, everything, every
Cans.
vendor, every raw bar.
Really?
Cans
has-
and mugs.
You
This
cannot
year?
have plastic this year at all.
Wow.
They're doing beer in cans, and then I think there's gonna be one special type of beer, maybe it's that oyster stout
What
that
are you
they
gonna
do,
eat your
that
chowder
they're gonna
with?
sell cups like that, stainless steel cups, and then you buy that cup and you get that refilled for the draft beer. It's just, but like on a big scale, every single restaurant is gonna have to use compostable cutlery and plates and,
Compostable cutlery.
yeah.
that's,
they use
that's,
that
that's
corn
sort of why I was like,
Or wood.
this is like a thing, you know, when you see like all of this, you know, the banning straws, like in like the town of Wellfleet is like no plastic, like.
Dave, I remember 2015, 2016, we had some plastic group come in and present to us.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
Lonnie, very good in science, and Lonnie Briggs came in, and she just did this intense little, beautiful, fact-filled talk, and then she had links. It was just like a smorgasbord, and it was very easy to take in. And she was one of the people, we'd already looked into it, as John probably remembers with Barbara Benisol, but we'd already looked into the microplastics feeding, you know, organisms you don't want it to feed, extra special. So you were on there.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
presentation.
I can't remember.
I forget the dates, but I think it was early.
I think it's right before I started my job, because I
She
remember
could
being in
come
the
back.
audience. I remember Lonnie and Lydia coming,
Lonnie and Lydia, yeah, Lydia, I remember Lydia.
yeah. But I think I think we all understand the problems. I think what we need is to focus on potential solutions for all, you know, different
Well,
strokes are
exactly,
difficult.
For people or idiots like me that don't know what any of these things, I know what a zip tie looks like, but I don't know, and I know what a bungee cord looks like, but having them all next to each other would help me visualize what we got now and what we could think about for the future, you know? I mean, I don't
Yeah, well, I mean,
I mean, we're the people that can invent that kind of stuff if we're, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all about finding industry alternatives, and it'd be good to find industry alternatives that are cost effective. And you know, having this come before, I've always been hesitant to do it through regulations
Yeah.
because I don't want to, you know, hurt anybody's business. But it's definitely worth a discussion. So.
well, and you could, that way you could see, kind of know what you're comparing. This is obviously good for the environment, this is a little less good for the environment, as long as you dispose of it properly, that kind of thing. And the other thought I had was, I don't know what they do on the West Coast or what the similarities are out there in the shell fishing industries, but sometimes they have a way of doing things totally different than we do. Maybe they've already got an answer that we don't even know about.
I'd like to, yeah, I think, like, I was looking, so where I got the idea for the hooks that I use, was that Trisk was from a company in Ireland.
In Ireland?
Yeah.
Well, that's way out.
Yeah.
And look at France. France has a huge oyster industry,
Mm.
and they've been doing it longer than us.
Do our plastic bags come from?
Does they come from France?
Yeah,
Where do Chinese hats come from? Don't they come from
France. Well, at least the ones we buy now, but I don't know about the older ones.
David Francis told me he had supposedly the first Chinese hats here a long time ago. This is Joe Francis' son. And he
China,
said he
that's
got
from
them
France.
from France.
I think the other thing that, like how you were saying, like you don't want to be not through regulation, like I think we should try to like guide it in the way that's easy for us before it's regulated.
Yeah, if we could put out some
Totally.
good alternatives,
Guide,
then it would,
yeah.
people would just take to it.
Yeah,
Because everyone wants to do it.
yeah.
It's just, there's been a way of life set up, so it's hard to change, but
Yeah.
maybe as a board, if we could put some alternatives out there and maybe with a little grant or some funding, get some things out there, and people could say, oh, this is good, it works.
Is anybody here doing a booth at Oyster Fest? Anybody here?
No?
Working merchandise.
I'm in
What's
this
that?
fat booth.
I'm working the merchandise too.
Oh, nice.
I was just thinking if anybody who's got a booth that, you know, it's got shellfish, if you could grab a selection of all these little things and just have a little, like a plate or a board or something like that, it's got them all right on it, and somebody's gonna come up and ask you about it. What are those, you know? And start a conversation.
I think that-
We're thinking about doing something. This is how we close our bags.
I think the Wellfleet Shellfish Association was going to do something like that. Like this is a rack.
This is how you
a
talk.
bag.
If you
This
see
is-
these things, this is what you can do with them. Bring them to the recycling, bring them wherever you're supposed to bring them, and just an idea.
Okay.
All right, good.
Awesome.
So like for next steps, who can look into grants in town hall? Or I definitely don't know my way around this arena with grants.
I can mention something to Spat and see if, you know, there'd be any interest there with
Yeah.
this, just to see, throw it out there. And then, you know, I can look into some alternatives, see if there's anything out there that's feasible that we haven't thought of.
That's a really good idea. If they're, yeah, I like your idea.
They'd be all over that.
Post-fest. And then we could, and if not then, maybe they could help us research grant-making organizations that would be interested.
Yes.
And then we could convene everybody with a show and tell and this economic incentive idea.
Mhm.
Because everybody's gonna have to, like, you know, this is how big my farm is, this is how many bags we use, this is what, do some dollars and cents about what you think it would cost, and then.
Numbers.
It's crazy, it is.
Numbers about how many bags are in the harbor at any one time, you know?
It is nuts, like how much that initial cost
It
is
is,
and the
definitely.
time
Yes.
it takes to
And the
build
time it
those
takes to
things.
build them,
It's
yeah.
insane, like yeah, I don't.
But I think it would probably, it's like anything, once you get started, it doesn't have to happen overnight.
Nope.
Right.
And I think that, like anything, the initial push, once you get over that and accept it, then it can just happen.
And then maybe each year you're doing 100 bags, or I don't know how
Right.
long they take to make, but
Right.
like literally just making incremental progress.
That's how I
is
did
better
it.
than just talking about it.
Like some of mine are still, I still use a zip tie on the top of them, but I'm like working to get the whole, everything, every year, just a little bit more, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Can I just call your attention to something? So, people haven't shown up for whatever reason, but the next select board meeting, Nancy, not the one, the work meeting we're having next week, but the one after that, we had the hearing about the specificity of what kind of equipment you use for dragging. Remember, there were two regs. There was the overwintering reg, and then there was that. And because Nancy was sick at your last meeting, and you didn't, like, get to it. There was some talk about it. But the select board does need a recommendation about it from you guys. And you know, it's not exactly time sensitive because it's already opened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, given that people aren't here? I mean, should it just, the hearing just be pushed off another two weeks or something? We can do that.
Yeah, maybe. And the other thing is that, yeah, I mean, it's like, I just think it's a larger conversation than focusing on one thing. Like, I need to look, I cannot find old regulations anywhere. The town has not kept, I know you, but
I
that's
didn't bring
different.
them.
I know, but it's like even the town, the fact that I can't look at regulations going back in time without going to Helen, who just happens to have them, you know, it's frustrating. But I would like to go back to understand why the 20% bycatch rule came into effect. As I reread that regulation, I feel like it's written in such a way where I don't need to have the specificities. It's been in the regs since at least 1987, and hold on one second. Like for this reg, the reg that I was looking to change at the select board meeting, no vessel shall land more than 20% of the permitted daily catch of any species of shellfish as bycatch, other than such species which the gear used is designed to harvest. So, I think I know what an oyster rake looks like, and I think I know that it was designed to harvest oysters. And I think I know what a bay scallop dredge looks like, and I think I know that it was designed to harvest bay scallops. So that's fine. What I don't understand is why there's a 20% bycatch rule. And I want to go back in time and understand this was an issue and it became a regulation. Is it still an issue? And so that's why, there's been complaining. There's a lot of finger pointing going on right now
Yeah.
Somebody's got to remember where that came about.
about a lot of different things in these regs. So I want to do people justice, but
Yeah, just two quick comments. Did you check the library to see if they have anything? Because when I first joined the Shellfish Advisory, I remember they have like a section.
I didn't.
They might have some old stuff to look through. And I asked my dad about this, and he said that the reason they didn't want people oystering with a scallop dredge is because of the sweep chain, take the tops off the oysters, and that's how some of this came about. That's at least his memory.
What's the oysters? Sorry.
So on a scallop dredge, they have a sweep chain.
Yeah.
And they're worried about it taking the
And
top.
no teeth.
Yeah, and they didn't want people oystering with a scallop dredge,
Right.
but people would always use to scallop with an oyster dredge.
That's not what I've heard from
Okay.
old-timers.
I mean, that's-
You know,
that
so
was just-
this
that was
is
just one
the thing,
opinion.
and I'm not
That's what Aaron told me,
discounting,
too.
because there just could be a million different ways, just like there's a million different types of fishermen.
And I can imagine the bycatch was just like a simple way to try to regulate to keep people from
Oh, yeah.
scalloping
Targeting one thing when
with
you're really
oysters, just to keep people from doing that. How are you going to do that? Well, you can only get 20% oysters when you have that scallop. And I think that was kind of the way to do it.
So when you have a bay scallop dredge on, then you should only be able to get 20% of your limit of oysters. So instead of 5 bushels, you know, you can get
I
one.
mean, it's all
It was
dragging the bottom. I feel like it's
It was a sustainability,
yeah.
purpose for that regulation.
Yeah.
You go out all day with an oyster drag, and you could get 20 bushels a day, no problem, back when I was doing it. And you could also get, with that same dredge, in the same area, 20 bushels of bay scallops, and it was, but, it appears now it's more of we got a sustainability problem out there. If somebody went out to do that right now, you'd be lucky to get a week out of bay scallops. It's...
Well, not now, it's 10 days.
And there wasn't the chopper style drag back then either. I mean, a bay scallop dredge was specifically designed for bay scallops. An oyster dredge didn't have a diving plane on it. It was strictly made for, for oysters. I mean, it was, the gear was different when those rigs were made, and very specific how they were going to fish, where they were going to fish.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it definitely, I think, needs to be rethought.
Well, I don't think there's like a shortage of stuff out there. It's like, I mean, I don't,
This year,
yeah.
I mean, I recall plenty of lean years out there where I'd be happy to go out and get a bushel of oysters through the course of an entire day. That would have been a good day's fishing.
It can still be like that too.
And I recall coming in at noon with 40 bushels.
Yeah.
Spending the day fishing and coming in with 100 bushels of oysters. Albeit they're only $6 a bushel back then.
And I just feel like I've had a lot of people coming to me, and I want to make sure that we're doing a good job of running a sustainable fishery.
Yeah.
And there's been questions about, well, if a vessel comes in with let's say there's 2 permit holders on board, and they get 12 bushels of quahogs, then somebody else is going to take that out and get the last 3. And you can do that. What you can't do is, well, if he can do that, then I want to go out, I'm going to get my limit and come in, and then I'm going to let another captain, commercially permitted, take my boat out to bring in another limit. And you can't, because it's by vessel. So I did run that by town council, and our regulations are written, so a vessel can only land its limit in a day. So the first scenario is true, but if you had 2 people on board, then you would need 2 permitted people to go on board to get the rest of a double limit. And if you're a single, am I making sense? Like,
Yeah.
if 2 people go out and they come in, they don't quite get their limit, that boat can go back out in the harbor, but it would need 2 people on board, and it would only be able to make up the rest of it for the limit for the boat for that day.
Single vessel limit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
vessel limit.
So are you comfortable interpreting the rules that are on the books and waiting till we can have like a bigger meeting and make sure everyone's here and air it out?
I think the boating people.
So
would be here.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that bycatch limit is not getting enforced right now, because it has not been enforced in the past. And
So
if I go to somebody with an oyster rake on and I say, okay, you can only have, you've got 5 bushels of oysters, or, you can only get 20% of your limit. So you can only get 2 bushels of bay scallops. There's There hasn't been a clarification made in a public forum about that rule, so I don't, unless I'm gonna have, 10 or 12 individual arguments, which I don't wanna do. I wanna be able to get everybody in the room and talk about it.
What's your take right now in looking at what's being brought in? Is something being stressed? Is there one specific clams being stressed or oysters being stressed? I mean, what's happening?
So the problem comes on October 1st with bay scallop season. So I can pull, our 10 days worth of reports. But we went through last year's, where we didn't have, Chris wasn't on boat patrol and, 8 hours were getting used up with double tides and whatever it was. The boats weren't quite as heavily monitored last year, which is why Chris is now in the boat patrol position. But it was, most of the time, people were focusing on one and getting bycatch of another. I would say, like 5 bushels of one species, 1 bushel of another. There were some times it'd be like 9 and 6. So that's kind of like, that was a little more,
Okay.
they're getting both species, they're targeting both species.
And
But
what-
most of the numbers reflect you're targeting one species and you're getting a pretty small bycatch of another species, I
Okay.
would say. Most of the numbers reflect that.
So the one that was 9 and got 6 as bycatch, was that repeated by other people that were like having the same, not problem, but the same thing happened to them where they were dragging with one kind of drag and this is what they're picking up and they're getting, for every 9 bushels, they're getting 6 of bycatch and that, so what was the 6 and what was the problem with that?
Oh, wait a minute, now I'm seeing the blood clam column too. So people are targeting bays and bloods at the same time, basically.
What if we just got rid of the
You
bycatch
can't not,
limits?
though. You can't
Right.
not, because, like,
Yeah, what do you-
catch this other stuff.
But what if we just got rid of those limits? Would that be like a total enforcement problem? Or
Get
would it
rid
be
of
a
the
s-
bycatch
Yeah, just
That's what I
reg,
said, yeah.
yeah, just like get rid of the bycatch. Just
8.4.
if you want to work hard and get your
So
limits.
my mind went there too, but first I want to understand why it was in there in the first place.
Totally.
So I'm getting, I couldn't remember that. I remember you telling me it now. I remember somebody had told me feedback about, it was actually the reverse, is that they didn't want bay scallop judges being used for oysters.
Yeah.
So, but I'd like to kind of do a little bit of research on that. And
Yeah. Is
I would
it,
like to also, maybe it is better to look at a month or 2 of data right now when people are fishing hard and see what people are bringing in. Dave, am I saying something that's like...
yeah. You don't want to hurt. You don't want to hurt the sustainability of the harbor, but
I know,
it
like-
just seems complicated. I mean, no matter
It
what,
is.
you're dragging the bottom out there. I mean, one drag, the other drag. No matter what, you are dragging a rake along the bottom, so
Right.
it's doing damage. But
Yeah, so if you're dragging for one species and you get a lot of another in one drag, that's less environmentally damaging.
Yep, because you're
So,
killing two
yeah,
birds.
right.
And you still
And
have...
3 people are making a living.
yeah,
Right, you can't, you can't go over it.
So what is the option of just getting rid of the bycatch limit?
I want to understand why it was in there in the first place before I take it.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
I
I
think that makes
understand.
sense. Yeah.
So can I just say something about our meeting from the...
Yeah, so that
And
it's-
also, so you guys know about it. So it's been continued, remember I did that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and continuing it means either you take it off the agenda or, what I don't want is to have that on the agenda and people showing up and we haven't gotten a recommendation after a public forum about it that's,
Right.
So you
full
should
of-
kick it down the road.
I mean, should we try and have a meeting of Shellfish Advisory just for boat regulations in another week or something?
Another week this month.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, they could have showed up.
they're already bay scalloping and like they're doing their thing. Like
So, yeah, why aren't they here? Because then maybe, I
I'm
don't
sure
get it.
Mikey was out fishing until like dark.
Yeah, he
You know.
was.
So
But he's the only one out today.
yeah, well
Nancy, you can
that's
just take it off the agenda and they have to repost it, which costs money, but that's okay.
Well, it's because it's not your budget.
You don't have to pay.
Now we-
Well, I think we should wrap this up anyway.
Yep.
Because it's like 8 o'clock and they're shutting the lights down, so maybe we should just talk about the next agenda, like super
Dave.
quick.
I just ask Nancy a quick question. Do these regulations apply only to fishing within Gulf Harbor, or do they apply for boats which are not in the harbor but might be fishing out in the bay?
Only for Wellfleet Harbor.
Okay, but if you go and it depends on what you're fishing for out in the bay. Because if you're a sea clammer, then we don't have anything to do with you. If you're fishing for any shellfish that's regulated by the town of Wellfleet in Cape Cod Bay within the 3 mile, or whatever the jurisdiction is of the town, 3 miles in Cape Cod Bay, that's still under our jurisdiction. Are you following me?
Yeah.
But
No, that's fair.
a state
What's
fish.
behind my question is the bay scallops, because we get together and talk, that's an issue I'll raise, because that's one of the markers of a healthy estuary. is
That's like what,
Field grass is having a good bay scallop
So I,
productivity.
so that like, if, Eben and I were talking about this on the boat, like a good bay scallop industry is indicative of a healthy harbor. You can literally catch bay scallops everywhere. In the harbor.
and
now?
the amount of small bay scallops this year that are the size of a quarter, they're everywhere.
Wow, that's great.
The yield is not good, but they're everywhere. They're like terrible scallops, but they're everywhere.
They're
Well, but they
terrible.
almost
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
But it's Wellfleet.
Is
That's
there
how
more
it is.
eelgrass than there used to be, or
In the
is it
spring?
coming back at all, or no?
No.
Yeah, they're gonna be golden.
No. So I think we should seriously just like quickly talk about what we want to put on the next agenda and set the date super quick.
Okay, so I'd like to have boat regulations on the agenda.
All right.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to go by 3 things. Boat, I would like to discuss as soon as possible a plan for allowing dragging in the channel before we dredge it. And what Chopper was saying to me was, we can't do it in the summer because of all of our boat, we have pleasure craft. And then October 1 is when they're going to start. And so even just the month of September, it's still pretty busy. So it was something that we would need to allow, let's say, March, April, May, something like that. And therefore, that's why I'd like to talk about it, because it might not be something we resolve in one meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like to take feedback on that. And then the last thing is the discussion about the marina and the need to create a sub-area of Cape Cod, of CCB 13. So we're going to need to create a sub-area of CCB 13 with regards to our marina.
For the boats. All right, cool.
Harbor management plan.
And the harbor management plan
Yeah.
and shellfish management plan. I guess do both. So why don't we put those and then let's pick a date really quick too, so these librarians can get out of here.
They left.
We still got one here.
Yeah, she's special. She sleeps here.
She's shafted.
You guys want to do like November, like later on in the month? Can we
Well,
do that?
we're already meeting once with an REB, is that right?
Yeah, that's why maybe we could have like a week with no meetings for.
So like the week of the 18th, should we do like Wednesday the 20th?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Cool. 6 o'clock?
Yep, Wednesday the 20th
6
at
o'clock.
6.
Are we doing the meetings here from now on, or are we gonna do town hall, or what?
I like
We gotta ask first, I guess.
I think we should do it here if we
Yeah.
can.
This is a cooler
Especially
room.
Yeah.
Yeah, boating too.
By the way, it's not the conference room. You're not gonna look
No, we
What was it, the
said
20?
the large event.
Which date? The 18th?
20th, Wednesday the 20th at 6
Large
of
event over at
November.
the Wellfleet Public Library.
Online it says conference room. Yeah, I just ordered, I did too.
Where online?
Oh, so, we're gonna finish
Oh, I
this.
mean, this is.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Dave.
Dom, thanks.
Very good.
Awesome. Thanks, John.